Hey guys, this is Rainleafyness, or if you know me from anywhere else on the internet, you know me as Uiido. I'm not sure who's going to be watching this video, maybe just Warrior fans or people like, hey, a Warriors movie, what's this all about, or what's this video going to say about it? Anywho, when the Errands, yesterday, released their information of, hey, we sold our film rights finally for the Warrior Cats movie, the internet pretty much exploded, and of course I was very excited, and I went ahead and posted a reasonably long, but not too long, little post to Tumblr, just talking about some of my thoughts on it. I am actually an animation graduate. I have a BFA of animation, so I have a little bit of a different insight than probably say some of the younger animators, just people who haven't had the chance to get through college like I have, for one thing, they're younger. Um, so that kind of gives me a different input and a different outlook on things, so I figured I'd write about it. And the more the day's gone on, and the more I've seen and learned and seen how many people actually really liked that Tumblr post of mine, I kind of decided to do a video about it, because I figured, well, I guess not everyone's going to see that Tumblr post, even though I've now linked it in the description and the annotation for this video. But I figured I could probably also add on to it a little bit. I don't want to go overboard, so someone has to watch a nice long video with me pretty much talking about some of the things they already read. But I'm going to add like a couple new things that I thought were interesting or that I've learned over the course of a day. And this is just encompasses what I've learned as of October 21st, 2016 at 12:30 in the morning Eastern Time. Anything after that was not a thing before I started filming this. If something else comes out, maybe I'll do another video on it, depending if you guys like it. But for now, I'll just go over what I know, what I've learned, and what I can just offer some insight on. And probably the first thing I can do is no, they're not making a Warriors movie yet. Kind of what they did, it's like they went to the library, the people who bought this film, and they rented 3 books. And the Warrior Cats movie was one of them. So they have it on their list. They are dead set, and they're going to say, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to read it by this time. So they read, this other book they want to read first, they do another one, and then they get to Warrior Cats. But if it's one thing when you buy something, it's another thing when, you go to the library and the only copy of something isn't there because someone else has it. That's kind of how it is with film rights too. If someone already has it, you can't do it. You'd have to go to that person and say, hey, can I borrow this? Or, hey, can I use this? You can't just, go and get it willy-nilly, or, just even go to the librarian and say, where can I find this? So that's kind of what happened with that so far. So it's on their list, but they're not going to get around to it quite yet. And I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. I don't know when they're going to start it either, but I can tell you how to tell when they've started it. And when it comes to filmmaking, in the studios, you have to go ahead and go to the people who are in charge, people who have the scheduling, the teams, and most importantly, the money. And you have to go ahead and do something called pitch sim. You have to pitch your idea. So when you have a good pitch that, they like and they say it's a good idea, so let's say for the Warrior Cats movie, it's, let's say we'll just go with Into the Wild for this one example. Or with the Lion King movie, Lion Cub sees his dad murdered, comes back, becomes king, Hamlet with lions. Apparently someone along the line said, okay, that's a reasonable basic idea. Here's money to go ahead. Here's your team. Let's, see if this will go. And that's when things start changing, when you look, online and see what things are coming up. I'm sure a lot of you have now noticed that Alibaba Pictures, the company who went ahead and bought the rights to the Warriors productions, they have it on their an upcoming list. It's not a done deal yet. They don't have, they're not working on it. They're not animating on it as we speak. What you'll be able to tell when they do get to that point is things will change from upcoming to pre-production. Pre-production is kind of just like it's kind of like warm-ups for a soccer game or football for everyone else in the world, where you're getting things ready. You're starting things, you're getting your team together, you're doing the basic work, and then it'll move into production. That's when they're going to be doing any heavy filming or animating or heavy voice acting. What we want is pre-production. That's when we know things have started. Anything after that, it's going to take time, as all movies do. And I guess the next thing I'll talk about is Alibaba Pictures, the company who went ahead and bought the movie rights. And they used to be known as China Vision Media. They're a Hong Kong-based studio. And what's interesting about them right now is that they currently don't have any movies out yet. They just have a lot of upcomings that they've had for a while now. And there are a couple movies they're associated with out in theaters, and those are mostly as investors, which is kind of interesting because already this is a very wealthy studio, so hopefully budget won't be a big problem with this Warrior Cats movie. We just, fingers crossed. But anyway, Alibaba is relatively young, and like I said, it's based in Hong Kong, which is actually a really key feature. Hong Kong, I did a study abroad there for 10 weeks with my school, and with animation, and I worked with, people still in the industry. A lot of my professors were still working on films, and I got to live and see, their animation firsthand. So when you are a company working in Hong Kong for something like this, you have a pretty wide opportunity of where you can go to get help. They've already signed a deal with a lot of smaller Hong Kong-based studios. I'd say names, but unless you live in Hong Kong, chances are you're not going to recognize any of them. But when you're in Hong Kong, you also have a pretty wide market of studios you can help get things from in China, even though they're technically, not China, or not yet. But they also have the advantage of the rest of the world. A film company in China pretty much just has China, or if you're Shanghai DreamWorks, you have DreamWorks, and that's it. A company in Hong Kong, they want to get help from France, great. They can go help from France. They can get it from Britain. They can get it from the U.S. It doesn't really matter, as long as they have a good deal. And they've actually done this already. They have a deal with Amblin Entertainment, and a lot of you probably don't know what that is by name, but you'll know what it is when I say what they've done and who founded it and did most of the directing. This is Steven Spielberg's company. This is the thing that did E.T., this is the thing that pretty much Universal was really big in, and as far as animation go, because Steven Spielberg did direct some animation, he actually went ahead, he did An American Tail, he did We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, and probably what a lot of you know is Balto. He went ahead and did Balto. And, pretty solid stories, pretty well known. We still show them to kids today, and they're really very well animated. So that'll be really interesting. It's hard to say if Amblin will have any direct interaction with a Warrior Cats movie. We just know Alibaba is associated. Amblin is a little trickier. They're working mostly on releasing some of their own works in China through Alibaba, but they're also supposedly going to do some work, as joint forces. So if we're getting anything like that, hopefully we can get a little cross mingling of influence. And I guess the only other thing I want to pause and know is that a lot of these studios are parts of other broader studios. Alibaba isn't. It's part of the Alibaba business group, and you can Google them. They're very big, very famous, and a very reliable resource. But like I said, Amblin is part of Universal, so who knows, who's going to come from where, who's going to do what, and we could have an entirely Hong Kongese cast working on this Warriors movie. We could have a totally Chinese, or maybe they're going to say, okay, we have the rights to Amblin, we want you to work on this, can you do that for us? So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Again, this thing's not even in pre-production, it's kind of hard to guess. So I guess the next thing is, talking about it, is that a lot of people are worried about how Warriors would be as a movie. And that is so justified, because we're all worried about, oh my gosh, how are they going to just do one book? Are they going to do like 3? Are they going to do the whole series in one movie? And a lot of people, it didn't just start with this person, but a lot of people are attributing it to Nell Flowers, and I hope I said your name right. I'm very sorry if I didn't. But, and I'll link their video that I'm talking about in the description and in the annotations, so you guys can go ahead and watch it, and I recommend watching it. Anyway, they did a video saying why you shouldn't want a Warriors movie. And frankly, a lot of that is going to be a moot point now, because, well, there is going to be a Warriors movie. But a lot of what they said is, of course, that it would just be as far as American productions go, and frankly, we don't know if we're going to have an American production. But already it seems like we're going to have a reasonable marketing to China. Warriors Cats is pretty popular in China. It's more popular in some countries than other, and it's probably not very surprising a Chinese affiliated group bought this. But anyway, a lot of these American filmmaking styles, a lot of their choices, as far as just film and then animation, there's just so many differences, what you can do in country versus country, and what's popular, what's reasonable, so it's really kind of hard to guess. I guess it would depend on who they're targeting this more towards. Are they targeting this more towards their English-speaking audience, or are they targeting more to Mandarin? It's in Hong Kong, is it going to be their Cantonese audience? It's really kind of hard to tell, because anyone who's watched anime versus a K-drama versus the BBC will know none of those things are remotely related to each other, especially when you compare that to American television. And yet we're still watching these in countries all around the world. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, maybe we'll get a mix, an unusual mix of how serious something can be or how silly, It'll depend. It'll be interesting to see who has what. But I think if Amblin's involved at all, or even just some of these Hong Kong studios, no matter what, we'll have it'll look really amazing. And as an animation person, sorry, I'm all about aesthetics, but it'll look gorgeous. And hopefully it'll have a pretty solid story as well. There's actually a lot of, films from these areas that do have a pretty solid story, accurate or not. Everyone knows the story of Balto. He wasn't half wolf, he was a husky, just a normal husky, but we all remember that part of the movie. We can kind of tell you what the plot was, and frankly, we remember where the heck Nome, Alaska is because of that. So it'll be interesting. I think we're just going to have to sit and wait and kind of guess and twiddle our fingers for a couple years while this thing is being made. And I guess the next thing I want to talk about is, don't get too offended if this is not a perfect production of Warriors. Very, very few things are perfect replications. One of my favorite books of all time is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And anyone who has read the book and then watched the movie by Studio Ghibli, and I'm going to say right now, I absolutely adore both of those, the book and the movie, but they're not even remotely related. They happen to have a couple characters who kind of overlap. They're not the same, but they kind of overlap. But the rest of the story is so different. I don't know where it split off, but totally different. But then there's also things like Harry Potter. That managed to be a fairly compelling, book series and kids-based. I know it's not animated, but a lot of money went into that, and Warriors is a bit of a moneymaker in a lot of regards. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they actually want to go with it. Are they going to do the first book? Are they going to do the first 3, the first series? Are they going to do a super edition? Are they just going to do a flat-out spin-off? Who knows? And there's not really a lot of point in speculating, because we're just not going to get an answer for a couple years, and we'll pretty much drive each other all nuts, as well as ourselves. So I guess if you really want to find a perfect replication of this book you really, really love, you're just going to have to find a person on YouTube, pay them money to do what they like of animating it and spending a lot of time and money and effort and blood, sweat, and tears on a perfect replication. I learned in school that when you're making something, especially animation, but when you're just making things, there's 3 options and you can only pick 2. You could either be fast, you could either be cheap, or you can be good. You can only pick 2. So in the case of a fan doing it, chances are it's either fast and good, it's fast and cheap, it's good and cheap, but it's not fast. There's going to be a lot of problems. And being in a big budget studio, believe it or not, it's not any different. They just have a heck of a lot more people working on it and a lot more money to do bigger effects, but that still doesn't change things. We all know the knockoff movies that happen to show up on, Netflix or Redbox if you live in the United States. Just the ones that you just know. You see that and you're like, oh, that ripped off this movie. Those were probably made in like 2 months. And they were cheap, but they were fast, but they weren't good. Where something like, let's say The Lion King, something pretty much all of you guys like, it was good. It was not cheap, and it wasn't fast, but it was cheaper and faster than some of the other things they had going on, such as Pocahontas. So keep that in mind with a lot of fan animators as well. If they're going to work on something while we're waiting for this movie, they have a lot more time and they're doing it a lot cheaper. No one's paycheck is on the line. No money they just spent to buy rights is on the line. Whereas someone working at Alibaba right now, that's, their family at home they gotta feed. They gotta figure out how to make whatever book they're adapting, work into a movie that can fit the audience they're best aiming for. Don't get too offended by that. They're just artists. They're doing their job. And frankly, a lot of the times the animators don't get to pick. It's, whoever's in charge of directing or studio or script. So don't be too harsh. It all just really depends on the circumstances. I mean, who knows? This could be the most amazing thing ever, or it could just be a total train wreck. I'm not against seeing it turn into either. I mean, who knows? The one thing I actually did learn, and I didn't know before, is the How to Train Your Dragon movies, the DreamWorks movies. Those were based off books, but as far as I can tell, because I went ahead and bought a couple, they're nothing like the books, but they're still really good movies. They're still very popular. They're still very well liked, and that was the other thing with Howl's Moving Castle, a movie and a book I really, really like. The author loved the movie. She didn't really care that it wasn't at all related to her book. She just said, cool, I like this. I'll have a bunch of little calcifers setting on my fireplace at home. I have models of all these things. She really enjoyed it. So don't get too upset if it's different. It's in a way, it's meant to be different. It's a film. It's not a book. And that's a complete with every single book you'll ever see in a movie. You'll see it with Harry Potter. You're going to see it with The Warrior Cats. You're going to see it with How to Train Your Dragon. It's just different. And honestly, there was a Tumblr user I noticed, and their name is Uncultured Mamoswine. I'm going to go ahead and put their little post both in my annotations and in my description again, because I really liked it. And what it says is, I've already decided that I don't care if the Warriors movie is bad. A movie can do so much for a fandom. Think of all the former fans that might get drawn back because of a movie. Think of all the art the movie will inspire, all the discussion. I'm pretty excited, to be honest. And frankly, they have the right idea. What this really is we should be kind of uniting around in another way, We're going to have a whole bunch of new fans in a couple years. We're going to have some old fans come back and say, oh wow, look at this. We're going to have all kinds of artwork. We're going to have, either making fun of how bad the movie is or saying, wow, how amazing it is. Or just even doing what we kind of do now, where we're talking about the book character description, where we're like, oh, I didn't picture them like this at all. I pictured them like this. I don't think that's going to change. I just think it's going to grow. And frankly, if a movie can help us and get our fandom bigger, what's wrong with that? I mean, I could change my mind in a couple years and say, oh my god, that was the worst thing ever. I take everything back. But as of right now, it is what it is. And I guess another thing I should go over is, I've kept saying a couple times now that we're not going to know for a couple years. And this kind of goes back to the good, cheap, and fast rule. We're probably not going to even begin seeing trailers for this thing for at least 3 years. And if we do before that, something's really, really wrong. They haven't put enough work into it. But with any luck, we're not going to see this thing for like another, I don't know, maybe, let's say 5 years, 3 to 5 years. We're not really even going to see signs of this because, you know, things take work. The movies take years and years to make. Pixar once said that, you know, a Pixar movie isn't ever finished, it's just released, you know. They're working on it this entire time, you know. It takes time. You got to build the characters, you got to do the script, you got to get actors together, you got to film it, you got to edit it, and there's so many people involved. It'll take a while. So while I'm excited for this, and I really love seeing all the posts online of people either freaking out or just saying, oh, this could be a really great thing, you know, I'm excited. I kind of like that, but don't get too excited. We're not going to see anything, you know. Don't get saying, oh, they're going to ruin it. We're not going to see it. We'll just wait and find out. And frankly, I'm sure this is not going to be my last discussion, maybe even this year talking about it. The Aarons did say they're going to let us know over the coming months, which makes me highly suspicious we're going to start hearing news of that green light very, very soon. And who knows, maybe their film is an upcoming book of theirs. We don't know. I mean, there is a super edition coming out November 1st, so we'll find out. And I think I'll wrap up about here so I don't stray off too much more, chat everyone's ear off, just kind of blabbering on. I guess if there's any questions, please feel free to either send them to me on Tumblr, send them to me on YouTube. I'm pretty open to everyone's opinion as long as you're not really nasty about it, you know. It's art. It's going to be different for everyone. And everyone's going to like something that someone else doesn't like. These were just my opinions as someone who has a little more experience with this than perhaps the average casual reader. And it is funny when I go on Tumblr and look at this post that's only been online for a couple hours and just see how many people are like, okay, this kind of relieves me a little bit of just, oh yeah, this is a thing, it's not coming out tomorrow and it's not going to be terrible. So don't worry too much about it. We're just going to have to wait and see and kind of roll with the punches. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more news about it for the next couple months, probably the next couple of years. But in the meantime, let's just hang out. Let's keep doing our own artwork. Let's keep talking about Warriors. Let's keep reading the books. Anyway, if you guys liked me doing this, I think I might do a couple more Warriors talk videos about a couple other things, probably not just the movie Forever and Ever, and I promise to actually have a nice animated moving character, not one who's just still the entire video. If I had more than a day's notice that I was going to get news like this, I would have done a little more preparing. But if you guys like these kinds of videos, I like doing them. I like talking about Warriors. If you guys don't know, I'm actually the owner and admin of Angels and Thieves, a Warriors RPG. I'll also put a link to that in the description, and I'll put an annotation for it on the screen as well. So I pretty much live and breathe Warriors. I have every book on my shelf. I'm really happy to talk about it and analyze it. And I already have the new one pre-ordered, so I will be happy to analyze that the day it comes out as well. So, yeah, I guess that's about it. If you like this video, feel free to like it, share it, subscribe, or just comment. And if you have any questions, like I said, just let me know. Thanks, guys. See you soon, maybe.